My name's GiniLu Robinson, and I'd first of all like to thank everybody here at St. Mary's Hospital for being so incredibly kind and gracious and putting on a very incredible event. And I'd like to also thank all the guys and gals at LivGeiger for honoring me and taking the risk of asking me to come here to speak to you tonight and to tell you my story. In 2009, in May, I went for my annual mammogram and it came back clean. And I was pleased, and I thought, yay, I'm good for another year. And 5 months later, in October, serendipitously Breast Cancer Month, as I was laying on my sofa watching some innocuous show on TV with my 2 cats nestled at my feet and nursing a very light vodka and tonic, I suddenly heard a voice from my bra, and it was saying, "Take me off or I'm going to kill you." And it did that every night. And so I took it off, and in the process of taking off my bra, I found a lump on my right breast. And it was a fairly substantial lump to me. I was kind of surprised. I had never felt it before, but there it was, and I was digging at it, and it was kind of tender. And then I was going, oh God, let's see, if it's tender, then it means it could be cancer, or if it's not tender, then it could be, I couldn't remember, and I'm sure none of those things are correct anyway. So I spent most of the rest of the evening feeling it, and finally tried to coax myself into getting to bed and to sleep. And the next day I had a friend feel my lump, which is an odd request when you go up to a friend and you go, "Hey, feel my boob right over here, because I think there's like something not so right." And they felt it, and their eyes got big around like little orphan Annie, and they looked at me and they went, "Ooh, that can't be good." And I said, well, the PG version of what I said was, "Crap, I know." So, I just didn't want to deal with it, but I knew I had to deal with it, and I found myself in my doctor's office the very next day. And as I was lying on her table, and she was feeling it, and she had that, but in a very doctor-like way, look on her face, "Crap, this can't be good." And she said, "It's probably nothing, but I'm going to schedule you for a sonogram and a needle biopsy, and we're just going to make sure, and we'll do it as soon as possible." And in a couple of days, I found myself laying on my back in the sonogram room and thinking, yes, it's going to be nothing. And the sonogram lady was doing her little sonogram thing with her little things, and I'm watching her face, and she's, marking it on the TV screen, and I'm looking at her, and I'm trying to read anything on her face, and I'm getting nothing. And the radiologist comes in, and he takes one look, and he says, "Well, I think we need to schedule a needle biopsy." And I was like, crap, really? And he said yes, and he took another look at me, and he said, "We're really, really busy today, but I think we can squeeze you in." And I said, okay. And so off I toddled to the other section of the clinic all by myself and sat down and was thumbing through a 1988 version of National Geographic or something in there, and in my head was playing the and I thought, yeah, I have entered the flippin' Twilight Zone. And because this is not what I had on my schedule. I don't have time for this, and this can't be happening. And before I knew it, I was in the needle biopsy room, and I won't pretend to tell you that it doesn't hurt, because it hurts pretty much. And the guy who was doing it was very good, but he's lucky I didn't decapitate him. And I lived through that, and I get up off the table and they pack my bra full of ice, and they say to me, you'll get the results, it's the weekend, you'll get the results probably in 4 or 5 days. I was like, really? Now, I don't know if there's any doctors out here tonight, or wives of doctors, or husbands of doctors, or relatives of doctors, or anybody who's even remotely connected to a doctor, but if you send somebody out into the world to wait for 4 or 5 days to learn whether or not you do or you do not have breast cancer, you need to give them a little tiny handful of calm me down pills. Because mine did not, and since it was the weekend, I tried to drink my way through it. And I pretty much was good at that, and Monday came and I sobered up and worked, and Tuesday came when I was waiting for the call from my doctor, and that day was probably one of the slowest days of my whole entire life, and it just kind of tick-tock, 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 and at 5:30 the phone rang, and I looked at the caller ID, and I saw it was Dr. Tapper, and then I had to make the decision if I should pick up. Because I thought, well, maybe if I just don't answer, she'll leave a message and it'll be fine, and I can just go on my way. But I did pick up the phone, and she said, "GiniLu, I'm really sorry to have to tell you, but I don't have good news, and it seems you have breast cancer." And at that moment, 3 or 4 things happened all at the same time. I was alone in my house, if you don't count my cats. And the floor fell out from beneath me. She was droning on about choosing oncologists and radiologists and cancer surgeons and plastic surgeons, but all I was really hearing was that teacher on Charlie Brown that kind of goes, wah, 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 wah. And I was answering her, yes, yes, okay, yes, yes. And then I made the conscious decision and subconscious decision to step outside of my body and move about 10 feet away from this lady over here, who was also me, but not me, because she had breast cancer. And I stayed over here and watched this lady over here go through the next 1.5 years, pretty much the whole time. And it was just my way of kind of dealing with it. I just kept saying, that's not me, that's not me. Every now and again I'd have to merge, and it was very uncomfortable, and I didn't particularly care for it, and I wouldn't merge for very long. I really just tried to stay there. And the hardest thing after that I did was to pick up the phone and call my 2 daughters. I have 2 grown daughters, one that lives in Tampa, Florida, and one that had just graduated from college and was using her poli-sci degree to the best of her ability by waiting tables in San Diego. And I put it off for a couple of days. I didn't know how I was going to tell my daughters that I had cancer. As women, we're supposed to take care of our children. They're not supposed to have to take care of us. And I put it off because I didn't know the words, I didn't know how I was gonna phrase it, I just didn't know what to do. And I finally got up the courage to call them. And to their credit, they rose to the occasion like the angels that they are. And I called my daughter Sabrina in Florida, and she was all, "Mom, don't worry, we're gonna fight this together. You're just like Grammy. You know how strong Grammy was, and we're gonna deal with this together, and I'll fly up there, don't worry, I'll fly up there, we're gonna beat this, we can beat this. You and I, we can beat this. When do you want me to come up?" And I said, "Well, let me find out what's going on, and yes, you can come up, and thank you, and I love you." And I called my daughter in San Diego, who basically said the same thing, but because she was, so relatively close, I had to stop her from jumping in the car and driving the 8 hours after she hung up on the phone. And I said, come up next week, you and I can go through the doctor maze, and we can choose the cancer surgeon, and we can choose the oncologist, and we can choose the radiologist, and we can choose the plastic surgeon. And the plastic surgeon was kind of key to me, because I always thought that if I was going to go to a plastic surgeon, it would be for a little something, something. And really didn't ever think that I would be talking to a plastic surgeon about having my breasts reconstructed. But I managed to choose all of my doctors. And it turned out that I had 2 tumors. I had what's called a DCIS tumor, which is a non-invasive tumor, and it was nestled in one of my milk ducts, or duds, as I called them. And then nestled right up next to it was a 1.5 centimeter invasive, cancerous, malignant tumor. And then I had to make the decision as to what kind of surgery I wanted to have. There were just so many decisions that somebody has to make, and all I wanted was for somebody else to make those decisions for me, please. And obviously nobody can, and the decision as to what kind of surgery you're going to have is a very personal one, and I knew on a very personal note that I would not have a lumpectomy. I have just, on a very personal note, I have had too many friends go that route and ultimately find that their cancer has come back. So I knew I was going to have a mastectomy of some sort, and then I had to decide, well, am I going to have 1 boob taken off, or am I going to have 2 boobs taken off? And so I asked my cancer surgeon, I said, well, how is it that you can match 1 reconstructed breast with a 55-year-old breastfed 2 children, gravity has taken over, organic breast? And he looked at me with this very kind of sad look on his face, and he said, well, they try. So I said, I did not want to go through this again, and for that reason, and the fact that I did not want to go through this again, I said, take them both. Just take them both, I'm done with them, they've had their run, and just take them both. And on December 8th, with both of my daughters and a multitude of friends in the waiting room, I went in for a double mastectomy and the beginnings of reconstruction, where they take out your breast tissue, cut off part of your skin, and then insert these devices that were invented by a man, I'm certain. They're called tissue expanders, and I later would refer to them as torture devices. But I knew when I was wheeled out of that operating room and I woke up without my boobs, that because I was so lucky to have caught my cancer at such an early stage, that I was indeed cancer-free. Thank you. And I thought pretty much I was done at that point. You know, hey, I gave you both my boobs. I'm done. And I didn't know until January, when they ran this expensive, very complicated test on my tumor, which apparently was sitting on a shelf somewhere in some lab, that it would behoove me to have a regimen of chemo. And I was like, really? Crap. Really? No. And you know, but then you look at the statistics, and again, you've got to make those decisions, and And I ended up picking a 3-month regimen of chemo, and in between the infusions, when my blood count was good enough, I would go into my plastic surgeon, and she would pump those blasted tissue expanders a little bit fuller, and till finally, you know, and I would watch my hair fall out, and I finally had my daughter shave my head on my deck because I got tired of wondering whether the hair on my shoulders was the cat hair or my own. And ultimately, I went through 4 surgeries, 3 months of chemo, and found out later, at the end of my chemo, when my hair, I didn't have a single hair on my whole entire body, and I'm standing there looking in the mirror, and I've got no eyebrows, and I've got no eyelashes, and I've got no hair on my head, and then I noticed that, oh my God, all my facial hair is growing back. And not only is it growing back, but it is growing because they, they sucked out all my estrogen. It is growing back with a vengeance. So I've got like maybe 4 very long gray hairs poking out. I look like a Dr. Seuss character, and I was still having to wax my upper lip. And I just didn't find that to be very much fun at all. But eventually it grew back, and it grew back curly. I started out with very straight hair, and I was curious and impressed and proud that it just grew back curly-cuey like this. I'll take any hair at this point, but I'm kind of getting used to it. And I think what I would like to leave with you tonight are 2 things, both of them very important. And the first one being to love yourself. Love yourself enough to take care of yourself. Love yourself enough to do those yearly mammograms. Love yourself enough to do your monthly self-breast exams. Love yourself enough that when you're doing your monthly self-breast exams and you find something that's unusual or a little lumpity-bumpity, you don't ignore it and hope that it's going to go away. Love yourself enough to take yourself to the doctor and to deal with it. And if, God forbid, you find yourself in the same tunnel that I found myself in, and that tunnel can be very long and very dark and incredibly scary sometimes, know, because I'm telling you, know that eventually there is a light that you can see at the end of that tunnel. And every single day you will get closer and closer and closer to that light until one day you are standing in the full-on sunshine. And you can say, like I am saying tonight, I am cancer-free, and I plan on staying that way. So God bless you all. Go home and feel your boobs. Don't make me come to your house, because I will do that. And thanks for coming. Thank you.